Speedway almost clear now as the giant crowd has moved into the grounds. Many sit on top of vans and trailers. Others have more luxurious accommodations at the Indianapolis 500. You know, here the seats are handed down from generation to generation, and I'm proud to report that ABC Sports is continuing in that tradition because we've just signed a brand new contract to cover the Indianapolis 500 live for the next 4 years. Now, let's consider the front row. The Penske team. Roger Penske, the car owner on each of those cars in the front row. Consider the positions. Rick Mears on the pole, then Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Jr. Roger Penske is the winningest car owner at the Indianapolis 500. He may win yet today.
Trackside at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I'm Jack Arute, and you're looking at the gigantic crowd, and there's Danny Sullivan, and some of the drivers are getting ready to strap themselves in their cars because there's only 14 minutes left to the command to start engines. As that start draws closer, let's check in high atop the start-finish line with my colleague Sam Posey.
Thanks, Jack. This moment when the drivers are at their cars always seems so poignant to me. It's a time when, for so many of the rest of us, the long winter is finally over, and summer is almost here. We're beginning to relax a little bit, maybe break out the barbecue. But for these 33 drivers, they won't be doing any of that today. They will be putting it all on the line in the most nerve-wracking race anywhere in the world. And it's hard not to have a special feeling for each of them. Working with Paul Page and with me in the booth today will be three-time Indy winner Bobby Unser. And Bobby, of course, you've been through this many times, but I can remember in your career, you were always one of the last drivers out to the car. Was that gamesmanship or what?
No, it really wasn't, Sam. But just imagine, for example, if you come out in the track early, you've got about 300 people shaking your hand. Just think how tired your hand would be, and you yet have to run the hardest race in the world. So that really wasn't it. It was trying to stay back in the garage and also get a little bit of peace and do a little bit of thinking.
Well, they say it's going to be 85 degrees by noon today. What difference will that make?
It's not going to affect the drivers. There's no humidity today, so we have a nice day there. But it will affect the cars, both because they're going to go slow on the yellow flags, but mostly because the sun is shining on the track. There are no clouds today. Beautiful day. But what's going to happen is the rubber and the oil is going to make the track slippery today.
Quick word about the start.
We're going to see that in just a little bit. Penske front row, really fast guys. Mario Andretti right behind. Mario's going to try to beat Rick to the first turn, but I don't think he's going to make it.
All right. Well, it is just 12 minutes to go now before that moment when the gentlemen start their engines.
These giant grandstands filled to the brim. The drivers strapping their cockpits now. The crew standing by close and ready, waiting for this last moment. Everyone waits. The pulse quickens, the heart beats faster. This is the grandest moment in motorsports. Soon the 11 rows of 3 will unleash their furies down the main straightaway. 800 left-hand turns, 200 laps, 500 miles. We go now to the pace car.
For those 4 words that we have all been waiting to hear. To give the traditional command is Chairman Emeritus of the Board of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Miss Mary Holman.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And the engines are now started on the main stretch at Indianapolis. Over 25,000 horsepower. The defending champion, Al Unser, is ready. There's Mario Andretti. He sits to the inside of the second row and acknowledges that his engines are fired and ready. Danny Sullivan poised in the center of the front row. Al Unser Jr. had a touch of the flu yesterday. Feels better this morning. And the pole sitter, Rick Mears. He holds all of the qualifying records here at the 500-mile race. Will, at the end of the day, he hold the race record. Emerson Fittipaldi, the two-time world driving champion. Visor down, sealed off from the noise in the world. And young Michael Andretti looks ahead to where his father sits. Roberto Guerrero, back in a race car after that injury last fall. And on board over Danny Sullivan's shoulder, there's the view we'll be seeing throughout this race. The yellow lights flicker on the pace car just ahead, waiting as the engines are warmed and come up to temperature. The signal will be given and the pace car will roll away. The 11 rows of 3 are set to go. Michael Andretti, as you look over his right-hand shoulder, rows up ahead. And the crew says, go Michael and good luck, as the pace car rolls out and the field begins to roll away. The second row, the third row with Derek Daly and Scotty Brayton. There goes Michael Andretti. The field now rolling 3 laps to the green flag, and you sit in the middle of the front row with Danny Sullivan. The pace car just up ahead. 3 safety cars ahead of that. They'll drop off after the 2 parade laps. So let's take a look at the starting field for the 72nd running of the 500. The pole sitter, Rick Mears, then Danny Sullivan. Al Unser celebrates his birthday today. In the second row, Mario Andretti looks for his second win. Al Unser Jr. and Ari Lyondike. The third row, Scott Brayton, Emerson Fittipaldi, Derek Daly. In the fourth row, Michael Andretti, Randy Lewis, Roberto Guerrero. Kevin Kogan starts on the inside of the fifth row. Former winner Tom Sneva and Phil Kruger hopes for a win. In the sixth row, it's Dick Simon, Teo Fabi, and Scotland's Jimmy Crawford. Bobby Rahal, the 86 champion, on the inside of the seventh row. Raul Boisel, and the fastest rookie ever at the 500, Dominic Dobson. The eighth row, starting his 31st race, a 4-time winner, A.J. Foyt. And a rookie, grandson of a 2-time winner, Billy Vukovich, then Tony Bettenhausen. The ninth row, Carol Palmroth, Steve Chassie, and John Andretti. The 10th row is Rocky Moran, a rookie. Stan Fox, 3-time winner Johnny Rutherford. The 11th row, Ludwig Heimrath Jr., Rich Vogler, and Howdy Holmes. The starting field for the Indianapolis 500 as you look backwards from Michael Andretti's car, the camera mounted on the gearbox and underneath the rear wing, looking back to the cars coming up alongside. Randy Lewis and the rest. And there over the right-hand shoulder of Mario Andretti. And on board with Danny Sullivan as you watch him manipulate the steering wheel. Magnificent onboard cameras here to cover the 500. Let's now go to the pits, Jackaroo.
And Roger Penske, you're the only man that has cars on the front row for the first time in history. Is there any strategy? Did you work something out between the 3 drivers for the start?
Well, Jack, the first thing we did, we talked about getting a nice clean start. It's a great opportunity to be up in front. I think that it's up to our fellows to have a clean start. And if Rick's in the corner first, I'm sure that the other fellows will tuck in behind. But again, it's got to be clean, and we'll see what happens. But I'm just looking for a safe race.
Well, you've got to be concerned about Mario Andretti as well.
Andretti's going to be real tough today, and he's a great charger. But I think he, even on the start, knows that the consequences that could happen in trying to get in the lead on the first lap are much greater than trying to win the race at the end.
Believe me, there's butterflies, Paul, down here.
Roger Penske contemplates this 500-mile race and the very real possibility of a finish first, second, and third for the Penske team. But there are, of course, 30 others who will contest that possibility. The drivers now begin the second of their parade laps, waving to the crowd, saluting those fans who are here today. Perfectly aligned, the 11 rows of 3. Let's take a look. 33 cars will start. They're looking for a little over $5 million in posted purses. The distance, 500 miles, 200 laps, and they'll be shooting for Bobby Rahal's 1986 race record. The makeup of the field, there are the engines and the chassis. A marvelous variety, more than we've seen in years. Several of the chassis, too, last year's models. Will it be an 87 or an 88 chassis that wins the 500? Well, the indication from race control is that there was some fuel leakage, but it should clear up and does not represent a problem. They don't anticipate an action against A.J. Foyt. Probably in the hot sun, overflow of fuel. Mario Andretti, he looks ahead to the front row. That's Rick Mears just ahead of Mario. Danny Sullivan, defending champion Al Unser. And there's Danny. What a magnificent shot, especially when he comes past the main grandstands. Looking back from Michael's car, Randy Lewis drops back just a bit. Roberto Guerrero just off the left edge of the screen. Drivers now will surge forward and backward, easing their own nerves. Now Michael begins to weave the car, scrub the tires clean, bring them up to temperature. Off of the fourth turn at the conclusion of the second of 2 parade laps. The pace lap is about to begin. So let's take a moment, consider the start coming. First, Sam Posey.
Paul, I think one of the things that should be remembered is that the grid is set according to qualifying that was done 2 weeks and 1 week ago. The last time these cars have been out on the track was this Thursday. Let's look at the times that were set then, because that may have more of a bearing on what happens in the next few minutes than the actual grid alignment. Mario Andretti was fastest at 215. Danny Sullivan second at 214. Rick Mears, who's our pole sitter right now, was only the third fastest at 213. So we may have a volatile situation here at the start, but I tend to agree with Roger Penske's assessment that everybody is looking to make a sensible start. The first rows are all filled with experienced drivers. It's only in the back that you have rookies.
Bobby, if you were in the front row, what would be your strategy?
Well, obviously, like Rick and Roger have said, get a good clean start. You know, main thing is don't have any accidents, because the race would be too short if you did. But right now what you see is the cars were strung way out, halfway or a fourth of the way around the racetrack. Now they're all gathering back up. These engines don't run well at low RPMs. They need a little bit of RPM. The tires need a little bit of working to get them warmed up. Now watch them line back up. Now that's a neat lineup. The guys that are going back and forth are just trying to get the extra debris off of their tires, Paul.
Well, the pace car is driven by the first man through the sound barrier, General Chuck Yeager. The pole sitter is Rick Mears as they come through the north chute and head for the fourth turn. Back with Mario Andretti. You can see that front row well aligned. The pace begins to pick up now as Rick Mears controls the front row coming to the line. The pace car already off the track and into the pit area. Dwayne Sweetie, the starter, has the green flag. They're aligned coming off the fourth turn. We look for the green flag now as there it is. And the 1988 Indianapolis 500, the 72nd running is underway. Danny Sullivan moves to the outside and then dives into the lead in the first turn. Danny Sullivan leads coming across the short chute, followed by Rick Mears, Al Unser, and now Al is being challenged by his son for third place. Mario Andretti drops to fourth. Danny Sullivan leads down the backstretch. Then Mears. Now watch this fight here. Yellow flag is out as a car against the wall. Roberto Guerrero, and it looks to be Scotty Brayton. A third car is there as well. On the first lap, exactly what is the most fearsome moment of the race, what we have feared, what everyone fears. The yellow flag is out. Less than a lap is complete, and the race is running under yellow.
Technically, this was not, of course, a crash on the start itself. It's out on the turns. The sound that we hear has nothing to do with the crash. It's the bombs that they send off after the start of the race.
Bobby, we're looking at the rescue crews. They are there. They're very fast to respond. And there is Roberto Guerrero out of the car. So we've seen both Brayton and Guerrero climb out of that car.
Well, the accident didn't look very serious. We haven't seen a replay yet, so we can't tell exactly what happened. But it doesn't seem like it's a very serious accident. But it's just so easy. The first turn, the first lap is always a dangerous time of the race, and all it takes is one guy not to give just a little bit to the others until they get strung out. You touch just a little bit. We had one last year with Jose Legarza. It's a shame we had one today because it's too long a time for Roberto to be out for next year.
It's too bad about Guerrero. You know, he has finished the last 4 consecutive Indianapolis 500s.
All right, we watch here. Here is one angle. You can see up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen coming off of the second turn. One car apparently losing it Brayton and Guerrero go to the wall right in front of the corporate suites and slide along that wall. Dangerous situation here for Guerrero because he's pointed nose in, the softest part of the car. And look at that wheel bounce.
That can hurt you if a wheel comes up and hits you. And interestingly, as we have a look now from the race cam,
there's Scott Michael Andretti's car. That's Scotty Brayton behind.
This may be the best coverage.
He's already started to lose it. Now he loses it sideways. Guerrero goes high. But that was the wrong direction as Scotty takes Guerrero to the wall.
Brayton lost it right on the painted lines, didn't he? Exactly what happened to Danny Sullivan 3 years ago. It's very hard with these cars, especially when the tires are still cold, to go over the paint without losing control.
There you see both cars locked up.
Not Guerrero's fault at all. He was taken out by Brayton, clear as a bell, wouldn't you say?
So perhaps, fortunately, they were not moving at full speed, and that may have kept this from being worse than it actually is. The tire bounces to a stop, and Roberto Guerrero and Scotty Brayton out of the race before one lap is complete. There is his crew. Disappointment is obvious as the wreckers now at the scene of the accident. We'll be back with more coverage of the Indianapolis 500-mile race after this commercial and a word from our local stations. We're back. 27 laps are complete at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Danny Sullivan leads it by 15 seconds over the second-place car. Currently, Mario Andretti. As Danny Sullivan streaks down the main stretch in the pits, Rick Mears heads for the Penske team and some Penske service. Now, will they be going for a change in the aerodynamics on the car? There's Rick Mears. The crew goes to work, led by Peter Parrott. No movement at the back of the car yet that I see, Bobby Unser. Maybe they're not going to. They're going to change the front wing.
What they're doing, Paul, is changing the stagger on the rear tires. That will have a lot to do with the way it handles, and they made an adjustment to the front wing.
So an adjustment to change the aerodynamics on Rick's car. Now, this car, number 6, Mario Andretti, they have displayed the black flag to him, and you can see the reason. He's spewing some vapor at the back of the car.
That's oil, Paul. Anytime it comes out blue, that's definitely oil. We just can't tell right now whether it's the transmission or the engine.
Bobby, what a devastating blow.
Oh, absolutely. But I just want to quickly make the point that Mario Andretti is running a Chevrolet engine, as are all the leaders in this race right now. Chevrolet engines have only once completed a 500-mile race. That one a less demanding race on the engine than this one. So there's a big question mark. All the Penske cars run Chevrolets, Mario, Little Al, and if it's a problem that might strike the rest of them, this race could be turned upside down in a hurry.
Okay, Sam, but just one quick note on that. The smoke is coming out awfully low. That's normally where the transmission, so it may be the transmission instead of the engine. Usually it comes out of the turbocharger, the engine, but not always. Let's see.
So Mario Andretti stays out. The smoke gets worse. Al Unser Jr. But look at this. As he comes along, Little Al, he accelerates strongly. So either Mario is not aware. Here comes Danny Sullivan, the leader of the race, as he rolls into the pits. Second place. It's interesting over the lead, and that's Mario. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Danny Sullivan comes to service with the Penske team, and they go to work, adding 42 gallons of methanol fuel. Sullivan looks over to Derek Walker, his crew chief, for any hand signals as to how the work is going. They've checked everything over, and it's a very quick stop. He's off and away. Back up to you.
So Danny Sullivan rolls out, but the question is, will Rick Mears beat him into the lead because second place Mario Andretti came in? The officials checking that car now. They've apparently decided it's okay. Whatever the problem was, it's all right. They can go with it. So Mario Andretti rolls out of the pits, but remember, his time at Indianapolis has been one of incredible bad luck for 19 years. Mario Andretti back on the track. Al Unser, who was the leader for the moment, and a car with a problem on the pits as the yellow flag comes out.
Looks
the yellow
like
flag comes out.
Looks like Tom Sneva. Tom Sneva, the former Indianapolis champion.
And what a terrible situation this is. Sneva started 14th. He moved up to first place, was coming for the pits, and smacked into the wall. Tom Sneva climbs out of his car and walks away.
He's actually in the pit lane, Paul.
Certainly is. Bobby Unser.
Well, that's most likely, you know, it's very rough coming into the pits here, and he most likely came in just a little bit fast. We haven't seen the replay yet, but the cars have a tendency. We've seen Foyt spin coming into the pits, so it isn't that it's hard to do.
You know, part of the problem is that the pit road is very rough, and also they're so accustomed to running fast. Now watch. Perhaps we can see here what happened to Tom Sneva. He actually lost it coming off of the fourth turn, tapped the outside wall, and spun down into the pit area.
Look how lucky he was not to hit the end of the pit wall on the right there.
He was very lucky on that, Sam. He almost hit that, but he clipped the outside wall, came in, hit the inside wall, almost hit the pit wall there. So
Mario Andretti in the pits. They continue to work on his machine, so obviously that situation a little more serious than originally reported, but we can get an update from Brian Handley.
Paul Bobby Unser had it right on. It is the problem in the gearbox. Mario is sitting idly in the car, the crew trying to get this problem solved, but meanwhile the engine is dead. Mario is just waiting helplessly in his pit, so it's a serious problem. Paul?
And now they are saying you cannot come into the pits. Bob, most of the cars have made their stop, so it's not a problem.
Okay, but that's a day in the drivers' meetings. All the drivers fear, Paul, is they're going to shut the pits down. There may be a car that really needs to come in there, but right now it's against the rules. No matter how bad you need to come in, you can't do it.
First time that we have seen that, as the field now under yellow goes around the field. Now, this is not the only situation that has affected the pits. A few moments ago, Teo Fabi.
Fabi in the Porsche engine car, of course.
Oh, look at that. A wheel count. Ooh. Dangerous situation here. That wheel carries a great deal of inertia. Fortunately, it stopped right there. But what I don't understand is the new rules require that all these wheels are locked on the cars. Now, that was coming right off the pit stop itself. Perhaps the lock just didn't engage.
Well, we haven't seen that yet. Most likely it wasn't just that the wheel nut was left loose. It's probably going to be that something broke right on the outside part and the whole hub came off.
So the Porsche-powered machine of Teo Fabi, it is a march. They push it back to the pits, and perhaps they can get it back into the competition. We are under yellow once again at the Indianapolis 500. We're back at the Indianapolis 500-mile race, the 72nd running. 48 laps have completed. We're past the first 100 miles now. Danny Sullivan continues his dominance of this race. Ari Lyondike with a remarkable drive is 26, almost 27 seconds back. Al Unser Jr. and Sr. continue their battle, and Emerson Fittipaldi has moved up through the field.
Well, as we look at the car of Danny Sullivan, the whole issue of superstitions at Indianapolis comes up. Penske has never entered a car with green on it, dislikes green, and through the years has forbidden his friends and relatives wearing green even to enter the pits. But the sponsor of this car wanted a little green and some green pinstriping on that car so it would look more like the product. And Roger, who likes a certain color of green more than anything else, that is the color of money, decided to go with it. So the car with the unlucky Penske green is currently leading the race.
And turning laps at 200 miles an hour. And speaking of green and luck, the Porsche is a green-trimmed car, and it has now been pushed back into Gasoline Alley and retired from the race. Let's go to Brian Hammonds now.
Well, as Mario Andretti sits idly in his cockpit as the crew continues to work on the gearbox, car owner Paul Newman is with me, and Mario's luck continues bad here in Indianapolis, it seems.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Seems like Mario's luck is continuing bad in Indianapolis.
We thought we could outrun it this year, and things were looking very promising, and we're sealing the gearbox with.
We know how frustrating it is for Mario. It's got to be equally as frustrating for you.
Well, it's worse for him.
Mario Andretti, every lap the leaders take is one lap farther behind. He is falling. Paul?
Paul Newman, one of the owners of Mario Andretti's car, as he watches on, a very skillful race driver in his own right. But Sam Posey, Mario is staying in the car. He wants back into the fight.
He will not give up until it's absolutely all over. That's the Andretti way, and I don't blame him.
Well, they're averaging about 149 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour behind the average last year, and well back from the 192 mile an hour average set back in 1984 by Mario Andretti.
Well, as we watch Danny Sullivan, there's Danny right there with the in-car cam. As we watch him from the higher shots go around the track, it's interesting to note that he's really sticking. It means his car is really getting a hold of the track. You can see all the rubber and the oil laid down as we get into the turns right there. Danny is not having to run to the left of the line. Danny is really sticking, and he's done that from lap 1.
Yeah, but Bobby, you were talking earlier that the track is a little slick. He's averaged on that last lap 193 miles an hour. Now, we all know that he's capable of running almost 20 miles an hour faster than that on a lap. Does that speak to the condition of the track surface?
It does to some degree. Some of it is traffic that he's passing. The rest of it is just plain and slippery. You can, honest to goodness, if you look at your screen good, you can see how slippery it is in the turns right now.
Well, the fastest car on the past several laps has been the 7 car of Arie Luyendyk. He's been running at 198 miles an hour. But here's the battle for third place. It continues to be a family affair between Al Unser, that's the bright yellow car, and his son, the little Al.
Well, they've been at it since the start also, Paul. They've really been having a battle. They've been seesawing back and forth. And if anybody thinks that Big Al's too old, they better take a look at him today.
And, Bobby, that's got to be fun for the two of them.
Oh, it really is, because there is no game plan like we talked about earlier. They're honest to goodness racing each other very hard.
So Al Unser runs in third place and currently leads his son running in fourth.
What I admire about what Big Al is able to do at this point is the hardest thing, if you haven't been racing in the other races this year, Phoenix and Long Beach, is to have a good feel for how your car is going to handle in turbulence. Last year, you remember, he came to the team right at the last minute and dropped way back in the early laps. In fact, as we see Luyendyk peel off of the pits, Al Unser had been lapped by this point in the race last year.
And Mario Andretti rolls back into the action as Arie Luyendyk comes into the pits.
Luyendyk, of course, the Dutchman, 34 years old. An interesting thing about Arie, for everybody else, the Indy 500 is such a big deal. For the Americans who followed this, as I think the three of us have for our whole life. But in Holland, well, it wasn't that much of a big deal.
On the track itself, the battle continues. Now it is for second place as little Al tries inside of his father once again, goes way below the line and has to be very careful as he comes back up above it onto the backstretch. The fight is for second. Luyendyk is in the pits. He was second.
Boy, that's a tough race right there, Paul. Little Al's running clear down to the grass trying to pass Daddy. And ironically, his dad is leaving him no room to get by.
All right, but there are two kinds of trust operating between these two men out there right now. One is the trust that exists between two great racing drivers, as we see Luyendyk coming back out of the pit. The other kind of trust, and this is the best racing we've seen, little Al, is the trust between father and son. You almost couldn't have a more ideal situation for a battle.
I guess Uncle Bobby'd have to say that was a little too close.
Well, I'll tell you, they came as close to the inside wall on this track as I've ever seen them run.
Bobby, just as a friend of the family, I think that was a little too close.
So little Al Unser Jr. moves into second place behind the leader, Danny Sullivan, and this fight has carried second place a bit forward. Danny Sullivan now only has a 15-second advantage over Al Unser Jr. Third place is now Al Unser Sr.
But 15 seconds is a cushion, though, that is almost a third of the track. So if you picture it, and by the way, the lead drivers always carry in their mind a good picture of where the opposition is around the track. And for Danny right now, he knows that the battle for second, and he will be being kept up to date. You see his cockpit there is fully a third of the track behind him. So he's really running on his own.
The Indianapolis 500, Paul Page with Sam Posey and Bobby Unser as Danny Sullivan, the leader under the yellow flag, is making a 4-tire change and pit stop. Does it in a tick over 13 seconds. Now, the reason for the yellow flag, just before we rejoined you, was caused by A.J. Foyt. We watch him as he ricocheted off the wall, coming off of the second turn, slid to a stop, but A.J. Foyt moving in the cockpit through with some frustration his steering wheel off and is apparently okay. We watch Raul Boisel, Michael Andretti come in for routine stops under the yellow.
Well, you know, seeing AJ out like that, Paul, I hope he's all right. It's been 11 years since he has won the race. And in the last few years, he really hasn't been competitive here, but I don't think it matters that much because he is part of the legend of this place. Basically, the way the bricks are part of the legend of the place. And I talked to somebody last night out in the parking lot. I said, well, who do you like in this race? And he said, I like A.J. Foyt. And I said, why? He isn't really going to be that competitive. He said, well, I named my son after him. And I think that sort of says it all.
Well, for about a moment, this car, the #1 machine of Al Unser, was the leader when Danny Sullivan pulled down into the pits. But now, with pit stops being made under the yellow, the order is scrambled. Let's go back and see if we can look at this accident, Bobby. Foyt ricochets off the wall. Hard to tell what got him up there, though, Bob.
Yes, I can't tell.
Well, that tire, the tire seems to have been off in advance of his impact, do you think? I don't know.
Paul, he hit the fence losing the tire, and we saw the replay just a snitch too late to make a decision on it, but his left front tire came out. He's also got the rear wing bent up.
But look in the foreground, either Rick Mears or Al Unser narrowly avoiding upper right of the screen there. That was a close call.
Darted his way right through. A.J. Foyt did climb out of the cockpit.
Yes, we saw him climbing out, so it doesn't look like he's hurt. There's our in-car cam of Bobby Rahal. Been a little bit off today. An interesting thing to note, Paul, for everybody, may change things a little bit, is Rick Mears came in under the green. All of the other cars that are running really fast right now came in under the yellow.
Part of that is due to the heat of the day. We talked about temperatures and how they would affect the cars and the drivers. We didn't talk about the track. 85 degrees. It should get warmer through the afternoon. That literally boils the asphalt surface of this speedway.
Yes, it does, Paul. And what it's really caused from is you lay the rubber down. Here's Foyt again, a replay of Foyt. He's coming back across the track. So with all the smoke, we really can't see what happened. But what happens is the rubber gets on the track, the heat is there, and then you put a little bit of oil on it. Boy, it's like Jim said, it's like ice.
Well, what did happen was A.J. Foyt ended his 31st run of the Indianapolis 500 very early. Let's go to the pits, Jackaroo.
We're here in the Roger Penske-led pits. Now, remember, he started 3 cars on the front row. Let's see if we can get a word with Roger real quick. Roger, they saying that you still have some problems with Rick Mears?
Well, the thing, he said he's getting a little bit of oversteer as the fuel load goes down, so we've been trying to adjust the car, and of course right then we got a yellow. He was going to run with Danny there pretty easily at the beginning of that second run, but it's a long day and we're just trying to get the thing dialed in. We just got to keep running.
Got to look at Danny Sullivan though, and that's got to make you feel good.
Well, that makes me feel great, but we got to get all 3 cars up there because anything can happen at the end of this race.
There's a guy that knows what he's talking about. And let me remind you about one thing, gentlemen, when you talk about fuel consumption in these cars. Remember that they carry 40 gallons of methanol fuel, which averages about 6 to 7 gallons. So you're talking about 300 pounds difference in a 1,500-pound race car during the course of one stop to the next.
Well, we're back at the Indianapolis 500. We'll do the station break here in just a moment because the pace car has indicated that they are coming back to a green flag, and we don't want to miss the battle for the lead at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. 64 laps now complete. 2 leaders, 2 changes. There are the statistics for this race thus far. Some interesting names out of the 500. A.J. Foyt, Roberto Guerrero, very early in the going. Mario Andretti still fighting to stay in the 500, but fighting a very unwieldy thoroughbred.
Well, and if Roger seemed calm in that interview with Jack a few moments ago, just remember that at this point in the race last year, the car that was going to win the race, Al Unser Sr., was a lap behind. So Mears is still in real good shape.
Pace car rolls into the pit area, and Ludwig Heimreich cracks the wall coming off of the 4th turn. Everybody bottles up behind him. Will everyone miss him? That's the question as he continues to spin. Danny Sullivan right there and part of it. Ludwig Heimreich Jr. as they come back to the green flag in trouble off of the 4th turn. What other problems will this accident have caused?
Well, it's in that same slippery place. We've had some problems there before. Very slippery, but obviously Danny got to it. Looks like it's okay. Might have lost some ground, but he at least missed the wreck.
Well, if Danny Sullivan's heart wasn't pounding before, I promise it's pounding now. The lead of the 500 almost taken away from him as they were coming back to the green flag. Ludwig Heimreich Jr. out of that car. He's all right. But Bobby, that's the second time we've seen an accident, a very similar accident right there. Here is Ludwig Heimreich, but let's look at the accident. He slips coming off of the 4th turn.
Well, I think it's just plain slippery up there, and he lost the car. We see no other car involved or any other reason for it, so I'm pretty sure that's what happened, Paul.
Watch for Danny. If this shot runs on, we'll see him come in from the right-hand side right now. Down in the foreground, Sullivan just squeaking by.
And it looked like he had the brakes locked as hard as they could without slipping because the car was twitching around a little bit.
Well, he lost a lot of ground from it, but at least he made it. Just see, Ludwig came in there awfully fast, awfully hard. Didn't hit the car, or excuse me, the wall all that hard, though, because his car's not bent that much.
Sullivan had the presence of mind to put his hand up.
And here's what Danny Sullivan saw.
Yeah, he put his hand up to warn the cars behind him. So Sullivan is driving one terrific terrific race. There it is.
His hand up. He says the accident's occurring. He saw the smoke of the accident. What he doesn't know is that car is sliding across the track, coming down in front of him. Sullivan brings his hand back to the wheel, looks to the right to make sure that he has room to make the move that he makes. That is the ultimate professional racing driver. Danny Sullivan signals those behind him, protects them, brings his hands back in, checks the right, and goes around the accident.
Well, you know, Bob Greasy, the great quarterback, is with us here today watching. Of course, he works for our ABC commentary group, and that's the sort of play you might expect to see in a football game. A halfback threading his way through the pack.
Well, Sam, let's take a look at this as we're under yellow once again from another angle. They work with that car at the head of the pits. Still trying to get Heimreith's car off of the track. Now watch here. Back in, comes loose right there.
Oh, was he touched from behind?
I wonder if
think he might have been tapped from behind.
Bobby, what do you think?
Well, it certainly looks like he had a little bit of help. It's a little hard to see the depth perception from
now,
here.
Bobby.
I'd say he had a little bit of help in that spin.
That's all it takes, of course. Look at Ludwig, Canadian, a young Canadian with a big future, I think. His dad was a driver. Put his hand right up to try to signal the others.
Here's Michael Andretti's onboard camera. The same situation. You can see again the smoke of the accident ahead. He was a little closer than Danny Sullivan.
Remember, they're not up to speed yet, Paul, so they do have, when they slow down, they're not going to slide the cars or spin them. The only guy that's in trouble is Ludwig in this particular case. The rest of us can really jockey a lot.
Yes, but it's still true, isn't it, Bobby, that the cars are set up because they only turn left, basically. They don't handle that well when they're being braked hard. They don't handle very well when they're turning right. So even something that's happening at relatively low speed is still tough for the drivers.
Normal speed, the same accident
there it
once
is.
again.
He was hit hard.
I'm sure there's a tap there. No question in my mind.
Was that by Lyondike, that nearly all black car? Now, Lyondike, of course, has been in and out of the headwaters of this race, running second, third, second. And if he sustained that hard a hit into Heimreith, we may see some damage to Lyondike's car.
All right. The crew apparently recognized it, and there they are, working on his machine, bent front wings. Now, they've got a yellow flag. They've got time to repair. And Lyondike says, let's go.
Yeah, a little bad decision on his part. He's going to run a little while without the right front wing on the car, which will make it handle very badly, but just to keep his lap count going.
So now that we know a bit more, let's take a look. Lyondike was accelerating. He smacked the rear end of Heimreith, who wasn't accelerating quite as fast, put Heimreith into the wall, and Heimreith out of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Take a look after 88 laps. 2 leaders still all we have had in the race. Danny Sullivan being predominant among those 2. 3 lead changes and cautions. Oh, far too many by my book. 4 for 33 laps already. As we come back to the green flag, the pace car off. Again, the green flag from Dwayne Sweeting. And we are racing. It will be the number 9 car of Danny Sullivan, who is third back in that serial that we keep our focus upon. And Jim Crawford in second place, and Al Unser in third place right now. Rick Mears moves up in 5th place, but he is a lap off of the leader.
Well, he is, Paul, but if you watch Danny, he's still sticking as good as he did. Look at the racetrack as he did the first lap of the race. Danny has definitely been the controlling factor here all day.
Well, the leaders have run away from the rest of the field. Only 3 are actually running on the leader lap. And Rick Mears leads a contingent from 4th place that runs 1 lap down.
It's interesting how backwards things are developing from what people expected. They certainly thought that in the race at this time with changing track conditions, that Rick Mears, who's the master of that sort of thing, would be way out front. Instead, it's Danny Sullivan, not known to be a great expert on the oval.
Danny Sullivan comes around Arie Lyondike, who was up in the leader serial for a while, but has now dropped back to 13th position and 4 laps behind the leader with all the repairs they've had to do on his car when he touched Ludwig Heimreith a bit earlier.
Another one, there's Danny right behind Michael Andretti. Michael's had somewhat of a slow day also. Been trying to play catch up all day. Normally, Michael is just terribly fast in Indianapolis.
So approaching now the halfway point in the Indianapolis 500. 90 laps complete as we look down from the blimp as Danny Sullivan, with incredible precision, moves that car around this speedway at 200 miles an hour. his last lap. Most of the cars averaging between 197 and 200, and the blimp, of course, is the Enterprise from Pompano Beach, Florida. Cameraman on board is Bill Sullivan. This is the 40th year that a Goodyear blimp has appeared at the Indy 500.
Sullivan surprisingly slow there. What is going on here?
Danny Sullivan, as his teammate Rick Mears comes past and comes back onto the leader lap. Now, is that a problem with Sullivan, or is that strategy? Is it tactics?
Rick has been trying to do this, what I'm going to have to call all day for a long time, Paul. He's been trying to get him back. Now he needs a yellow flag. If he does, he's going to come right back around, be in the same lap with Danny Sullivan. Then we're going to have another race right on the same team.
So Rick Mears comes back onto the leader lap. There are now 4 cars on the leader, and Rogers pretty pleased with that situation.
Now you can see Rogers not playing a team deal against each other. He's Rick's man. He's for Rick winning. Even though he owns Danny's car, Roger wants Rick to win the race.
Well, the fact that Rick was able to do that, Bobby Unser, does that mean that Rick has been saving his car all along as Danny Sullivan comes around Michael Andretti? Does that mean that he's just been playing it very cagey?
I don't believe so, Paul. I think it's just a mere matter that Danny got caught trying to be. He's really let and control all this race.
Yellow flag. Can rolling on the can.
Yeah, a little beer can probably, soda pop can, something like that. That should bring the yellow out. But at any rate, Danny was just probably a little bit careful, and Rick just snuck up on him.
We're back at the Indianapolis 500, where moments ago Danny Sullivan made this pit stop. You can see an adjustment to the right front wing on the car, and Danny Sullivan sits in the pits working on the edge of that right wing.
Well, what's happening is the wing adjustment screw is broken. Something is broken in there. Looks like it may be the same thing on Al's car. They're taping the adjustment of the wings down so the wing doesn't move. So they won't have any adjustment. This could impair their speed a little bit.
Remember, these are brand new PC-17 cars. There's a small device that allows you to adjust the attack angle of the wing, but it sounds like they're concerned that the wings are slipping out of position.
That's exactly what's happened, and it looks like it's happened to both cars. Now, that also means that it may be happening to Rick's car, too.
So we are under yellow while the officials check the entire race course. When you have a small piece of debris like a beer can, it can become incredibly dangerous. And they've taken the opportunity with the yellow light out to check the entire surface and make sure. Here is Jim Crawford. He is the new leader of the race. A wonderful story. He started way back in 18th place from Scotland at 40 years old, and he is driving with one of those Buick engines.
It's the engine, Paul, that Buick has to be so proud of today, but really a lot of people didn't think that that car would still be in the race, but not only is it in, it's going very fast and has been most of the day.
And he will acknowledge the green flag. A year ago, his feet were badly injured in a practice accident here. Today, he is leading the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Chasing him is in second place Rick Mears, who got an incredibly great break with the way that yellow came out just after Rick Mears jumped past Danny Sullivan to get back onto the leader lap.
Crawford's story, you alluded to his injury, is an extraordinary one. He had wound up with a big hole, really, the size of a silver dollar in his right foot as a result of a qualifying crash here last year. He did not make the race. He suffered in immense pain for 6-7 months, all through the winter. In fact, he lives here in Indianapolis on the outskirts. He was taken to the hospital every day for 2 hours of therapy. The ride in was so painful, he'd sit in the back seat with his front legs draped over the front seat with his wife trying to encourage him. And can you imagine, with all that behind him now, what he must be feeling leading the Indianapolis 500? Of all of the people here, maybe it means more to Jim Crawford than almost anyone to see him there.
Incredible elation for this smiling man, Jim Crawford. But, Bobby, look how low he's cutting under the yellow. But sooner or later, the official's going to say something about that.
No, they won't. They realize the track is slippery, but here we are. Jim Crawford's actually the leader of the race, but way back in the back serial-wise, so he's got an awful lot of traffic to go through. That's the reason he's running down there.
All right, Jim Crawford leads. Rick Mears is in second place. Now let's get an update on the condition of driver Steve Chassie. Here's Brian Hamlin.
Paul, we saw Steve Chassie being taken from his car on a backboard. Dr. Hank Bach is with us now. What is the condition of Steve Chassie?
Steve Chassie is awake and talking and appears not to have any at least objective signs of injury. However, he had a brief unconscious episode on the racetrack after the incident, and because of that, we're sending him down to Methodist Hospital Emergency and Trauma Center for further evaluation.
The backboard was just precautionary?
Yes, that's routine when someone is injured on the track.
All right, the news seems to be good from here at the infield hospital, Paul.
Well, that is, in fact, good news for Steve Chassie. And just as Dr. Fox suggested, whenever they have any question at all, they don't take any chances. They take their time. They strap the driver down to a backboard, make sure he's in good shape. Bobby Rahal right now is behind Jim Crawford. Now, Rahal is running in 8th place. He's well off the pace, a lap behind the leader. But if he could catch up with Crawford, then he could get back on that leader lap.
He just got passed by Crawford. Crawford is lapping Bobby Rahal again. I don't know exactly how many times, but Crawford is on the move. He's just got to get through all that traffic right now, and it's holding him up a lot, Paul.
So Jim Crawford works his way around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the best moment of his racing career as he leads the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Paul, it's also rumored that these D6 Buicks that Jim Crawford is driving today have more horsepower by probably 30 or 40 more than even the Chevrolets do.
So Jim Crawford works his way through the North Chute, leading the Indianapolis 500. The power is Buick, and the car is incredibly fast. He is now on the main stretch, and as he flashes across the line this time, 100 laps will be complete, the halfway point of the Indianapolis 500.
Bobby mentions the power of the Buick. I think a dimension of that power is that it's a torquey engine. It accelerates very well. And in this particular race where there have been so many yellows, the traffic has been bunched up, and most importantly, the turn speeds are down because of the slick conditions. The ability of that Buick engine to accelerate better than the others is proving to be an important point. The Chevrolet engines find their power at the top end of their RPM band. They're very good at top speed. Crawford has the acceleration. I think it's making a difference.
Tom, brute horsepower, right, Sam?
I think, in fact, what's being further suggested, though, is the fact that the torque of that engine may help on a slippery track.
It certainly does, Paul. Just exactly what Sam said. It gets off the turn if it has to a little slower, and down the straightaways it goes. There's...
Well, here is the #1 car of Al Unser, currently running in 3rd place. Rick Mears currently runs in 2nd. Danny Sullivan cracks the wall. Danny Sullivan, he had a glorious run going. He has no control over that car. Ricochets off the wall again, and the yellow flag comes out.
Paul, he loses the steering, he loses his brakes, he loses the whole thing. When that happens, he's just merely riding along in the car. There's Danny from the in-car cam trying to get out. He doesn't know if there's a fire, doesn't know anything, so he's hurrying as much as he can. A lot of straps, a lot of hoses to unhook to get out. By now, he knows he's in good shape.
And listen to the crowd as they acknowledge the triumph of man over disaster. Danny Sullivan climbs from his car, but his Indianapolis 500, which had so much promise, is over, and he's terribly frustrated.
That man has certainly dominated half of this race.
It looked as if he was, and we'll have another look, but as if he was caught out by the turbulence of the car that was immediately ahead of him as he was exiting turn 1.
Sam, I just want to make a note real quick on Roger Penske. Roger doesn't like to see Danny out, but his train of thinking has never quit. He's going to have Rick Mears win the race. He is Rick Mears' man, like we said earlier.
So just past the halfway point, actually at 102 laps, Danny Sullivan cracks the wall, climbs out of his car. He lapped at 176 miles an hour just before that. His girlfriend, Julie, disappointed, worrying. Average speed of the race at 146 miles an hour. Let's go back and take a look now. Danny Sullivan, the 3rd car in this string, just simply comes off high. This has been an accident, Bobby, that we've seen in practice. Twice with Pancho Carter, once with Johnny Rutherford. They're just suddenly high and up into the wall.
In this particular case, Paul, I have to give you what I think the answer is, and that's that right front wing. Remember when he came in for the last pit stop, the wing adjuster is broken. He's got it taped up, and here comes Rick and Al into the pits.
All right, the Penske team has their work at hand because Rick is now leading the race under the yellow, and Al is in 2nd place.
All right, there's Rick in the pits now. It's going to be interesting to see. He apparently has no front-end wing problems. No wing problems on the front of his. Al is already out.
But they have chosen to change 4 tires on this car as Rick Mears rolls back into the action. But while he was in the pits, Jim Crawford got past, and Jim should have reassumed the lead in doing so. Al Unser made a routine stop as well, but there's the 3rd Penske car. That magnificent front row and a possible finish 1st, 2nd, and 3rd has come to an end. From the race camp, there it is. Whoa, what a slam.
Well, that was a hard hit, Paul.
A piece of the bodywork comes up, and there is the second hit because, as we noted, once the car hit the wall, the steering and the braking was gone.
Drivers react to things so fast. I bet you Danny went through a whole cycle of emotional letdown even before that car came to a stop. You saw how quickly he flipped the wheel out of the way so that he could get out of the car.
Here we look at it again. The car slaps the wall. It is now totally out of control. Danny can do nothing. He's simply a passenger, and the wall is coming up again so very quickly.
You can even see the liquid coming out of the bottom of it there. He just wore out the whole right side of that thing, Paul.
Fortunately, he climbed out of the car rather quickly, so I suspect he's not injured. Here is another angle. Whoa. Already has hit the first time, slaps the wall the second time. So Danny Sullivan, who dominated the early going in the Indianapolis 500, is out of the race as a result of an accident in the south end of the track. We'll be back.
Indianapolis back in 1911, but if Big Al hangs on and stays ahead of Rick, he will take by 1 lap the lead in that age-old contest.
Let's keep in mind as we watch these two cars, Sam, Al has a wing problem on the front, and we'll have to see if it's going to affect him now as the race progresses.
All right, let's consider the situation with Jim Crawford, who now has fallen back in the field just a little bit with those pit stops. But Jim Crawford, the first race that he's run this year, led for a bit, and we may see it again, the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Last year, he finished 16th. He started 18th today and has come up to challenge the best in the business. Al Unser, the leader of the Indianapolis 500 at a 108 laps complete of the 200 schedule.
And he did do the record. He has now completed 614 laps during his career in the lead in the Indianapolis 500. That is more than 3 full races in the lead. Extraordinary achievement.
Truly remarkable achievement for Al Unser, this man, the defending Indianapolis 500 champion.
You can still see the tape on the left front wing, Paul, but it doesn't seem to be hurting his speed right now. Al's hooked up, going very fast.
Bobby, yellow flag. You saw the pace car come out. No indication yet as to why that yellow may have come out. We have an indication from race control that car number 5, that is Rick Mears, hit a rabbit out on the racetrack. Back at the 72nd running of the Indianapolis 500, 111 laps complete. We are under yellow. Al Unser, the defending champion, leads it, followed by his teammate Rick Mears and the Buick-powered machine of Jim Crawford. 2 Chevys and a Buick. Raul Boisel sits in 4th place, and Michael Andretti currently runs in 5th place. Danny Sullivan has led, as has Rick Mears, Al Unser Sr., and Jim Crawford. 111 laps complete, 5 different leaders. We just gave them to you. The average speed way down at 140 miles an hour, and 11 cars are out of the Indianapolis 500 thus far. Those out of the race, most of them owing to accidents. Guerrero, Brayton, Bettenhausen, engine problems for Fox and Daly. Teo Fabi with an oil leak, and then several accidents. Now, as we watch the field on the backstretch, behind the pace car and under the yellow flag. Now let's take a look here and see if we can analyze this last yellow flag. Watch the lead car. That's Al Unser. Rick Mears right behind. Look down to the lower left-hand corner of the screen. You see a rabbit in his last seconds. Now, he was hit by Al and then by Rick at over 190 miles an hour. As a result of that, the yellow flag came out, and we are back running under the green flag. Al Unser, Rick Mears, 1st and 2nd, 3rd place, the 15 car of Jim Crawford.
Penske started with 3 cars on the front row. He now has 2 cars left, and they're running in 1st and 2nd.
The Chevrolet engines, a question mark of last year. Mario Andretti failed in the final laps of the race, and look at this. Rick Mears goes past and picks up the lead of the Indianapolis 500. A man who was at one time 1 lap down, but who knows how to save a race car, and a team who knows how to tune it in the running. Peter Parrott and Roger Penske had to really be happy about that. Chris Mears, Rick's wife, just keeps scoring the car, but now she can write it in the top of the column as number 1. And there she sees it.
Rick is certainly hooked up right now. It's going to be interesting to see if the Rabbit did any damage to either car. It would appear by looking at him like it really didn't, Paul, but Rick certainly drove by Al like he was parked.
Certainly doesn't appear so.
I think the Rabbit was run over by the wheel, and since the tire wasn't punctured, my assessment is probably the car is all right. The interesting thing here is we talked earlier about the fact that Rick was apparently almost out of the race there for a while in the early going. All sorts of troubles. He made an extra pit stop under the green. And as these gentlemen remember, he seemed to be doing very badly, but the quick way this race changes around, suddenly he is way out front.
Well, this team has dominated the entire month of May. The Penske team, qualified cars, first, second, and third on the front row, as Rick Mears and Al Unser work their way around the track.
Two identical cars, Paul, set up a little bit differently, but two identical cars, two good drivers.
And we should remind you as we watch Rick Mears that Al Unser Jr. has climbed back into his car and is running in the race, though he is 20 laps behind this car of Rick Mears and running in 21st position, but still, he did climb back in, the crew repaired it, and he has kept going. Rick Mears on the main straightaway. Al Unser right behind. Rick Mears looking at 207.3 miles an hour for Rick Mears. He has really picked up the pace. They've been averaging down around 200 miles an hour, and now, boy, Bobby, that pace is really coming up.
Keep in mind, though, Rick was complaining earlier about the light fuel load versus the heavy fuel load. Like when the fuel gets down, Paul, it isn't handling so good. So it's going to be super interesting. Let's watch and see if he does slow down when his fuel load gets a little lighter.
You know, one of the interesting design aspects of these new Penske cars is they've designed the fuel load positioning in such a way that it won't ruin the tires when it's running heavy and keep the front tires able to race when the car is light and finally capable of running fast.
Well, Rick is about 2.5 seconds ahead of Al, and the idea of that fuel load going down like that is so the car, like you said, will stay the same. But it still comes down to the track being loose to a degree and to the chassis setup being right or wrong, Paul.
Well, also the point is that this team, the designer, Nigel Bennett, is very sensitive to how the tires work because he used to be himself a tire engineer for Firestone.
So Rick Mears turning laps at 205 miles an hour and leading the Indianapolis 500. The question to him, we have a problem. We have a problem on the course as the 17 car of Johnny Rutherford slaps into the wall, and another great champion's day is over. The three-time winner, hoping for his fourth, the teammate of Jim Crawford. Johnny's obviously all right. He's waiting for all of the cars to come past and slow down before he considers climbing out of that cockpit. There's his rescuing crew.
He had a crash here in practice 2 weeks ago now. And interestingly, because they had to work hard to get Rutherford's car back in shape, it curtailed his teammate Crawford's further testing and development.
The Indianapolis 500 punctuated now by its 12th yellow light, and that's keeping the average speed of the race down at 140 miles an hour, though when they're running, Rick Mears has been running very fast indeed. Johnny Rutherford stands up and climbs out of his badly damaged Buick-powered machine and walks away. A wave to the fans. That's a champion. So Johnny Rutherford, let's take a look. Third car. And Rutherford, vastly similar to the Sullivan accident, vastly similar to the accident that he had before in practice. The car just comes off the corner high. Now, Bobby Unser, let's examine this. We keep saying that the track is slippery, but we've seen the same accident on a very, very smooth and good track in practice.
Well, it looked to me like something broke in his right front on the wheel. The wheel was crooked when he came out of the turn.
And here's the first and second place cars taking advantage of the yellow. The Penske team with their usual coordination comes into the pits. Al Unser and Rick Mears. The pits there are side by side. Now you get a good idea of both teams in action. Both cars up on the jacks.
We're only on the 118th lap, and already we have had 2 more yellow flags than we had in the entire race last year.
Let's go to the pits, Jackaroo.
Well, it was incredible to watch these two teams go to work, both of them under the aegis of Roger Penske. What Roger did just moments before both Al Unser Sr. and Rick Mears pitted is he called down to Al Unser Sr.'s crew and said, move those tires so Rick has a clear run in. So he's still calling the shots for both your first and second place man. Back to you.
So while they clean up the debris from Johnny Rutherford's accident, the new leader of the race after pit stops by the Penske team is Jim Crawford. 118 laps are complete. We'll be back. We're back racing under the green flag. The 72nd running of the Indianapolis 500. 164 laps are complete. 200 the scheduled distance. 500 miles. Accelerating down the backstretch. That is Rick Mears, the Chevrolet-powered machine. In second place now is Emerson Fittipaldi, another Chevy, and then a Buick of Jim Crawford.
You mentioned the Chevrolet engine in Rick Mears' car. Remember, there was a car at this same stage in the race last year, Mario Andretti's, with a Chevrolet engine in its engine bay, and that car broke down on lap 177. We are on lap 164 right now. It will be interesting to see what happens from here to the end as we look at the race cam from Michael Andretti's car, which you see bringing up the back of that group there. There's Rahal.
Bobby Rahal running fifth.
Now, the most interesting thing is that Rick Mears did not stop on the last yellow flag for fuel. Now, what this means is that Roger Penske knows that he has a lap on the field. So he's gambling for Rick staying ahead, running in clean air. He's gambling that he's going to have another yellow, or he'll be able to make his last stop. He only needs one more stop for the finish, still under the green and not lose the lead.
Looking back from Bobby Rahal's car as we watch Al Unser just behind. Now let's reconsider. On lap 160, 6 laps ago, Al Unser stopped, Michael Andretti stopped, Emerson Fittipaldi stopped, and Bobby Rahal stopped. Now logic would tell you that at least 3 of those cars will have to stop again before the finish. Interestingly enough, as you suggested, Bobby Unser, Rick Mears did not stop.
No, he didn't. Oh, we just... Number 48 just blew an engine.
Rocky
right
Moran.
in the front straightaway here. Really blew it, too. We could hear it clear up here in the booth.
Pulls off the grass, but did he oil down the main stretch? He got to the inside pretty quickly, but they're not going to take a chance. The yellow flag is back out again.
Rocky Moran.
Good move by Chief Steward Tom Binford and the officials. Don't take a chance of running them down that straightaway at speed with the potential of a lot of oil on there.
Don't take a chance. And also another good move by a driver in the race, because Rocky immediately pulled it off to the left, got it off the track as fast as he could. But he crossed the exit to pit lane.
About 30 laps to go in this race, and as a result of the last series of pit stops, Rick Mears may have been joined on the leader lap by a number of other cars. And also important is that the officials have determined that going back to green on the 166th lap, car 20, that's Emerson Fittipaldi, passed another car, and so they are going to penalize him 1 lap. So a scrambling in the order here, and as they come past the line, we'll be able to determine what kind of vulnerability Rick Mears may have. There's Emerson Fittipaldi, and that's the one they say they're going to penalize.
Well, they've most certainly been going good, Paul. It's a shame to lose a lap, especially at this time of the race, because he doesn't really have a lot of chance to make it up. It was a very bad decision on Emil's part, it would appear.
He was up briefly to second place in this car, which he didn't really want to run in the race. It's a March car. He wanted to run a Lola car, which the team owned but could not, or felt they could not prepare quickly enough for the race. So Emerson started this somewhat at odds with his own crew, which is unusual for this very nice man.
So there's Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go down to the pits and Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, it was a great move, a gambler's move on Roger Penske to keep Rick Mears out there. How quickly it turned out to be one that was going to pay dividends for them. They were calculating right behind me just how far they could run the string in that tank of fuel so that he would only have to make 1 final pit stop. They gambled, as Roger said he would, to see if maybe a caution would come out shortly and they could go the distance. They've been looking at Bobby Rahal's situation all day. They know that there's a problem there in as much as being able to go for fuel consumption. But they gambled, and it looks like they may come out a winner. Let's go back to you.
And the green flag flies. That's Rick Mears over to the far right of your screen as he comes down and inside Michael Andretti. Rick Mears leads the Indianapolis 500. In second place is Jim Crawford and Michael Andretti. Well, you're on board with Michael Andretti, who runs in third place right now. Now, result of attrition during the pit stops, and Michael and his team have been able to move up, and they're now joined the fight at the front, but Rick Mears is leading the race.
So every time he passes somebody right now, Paul, he's putting a lap on him, because Rick was almost a full lap ahead. He made that last pit stop, put him back in the same lap. Now he's gained his lap back again. He's definitely the one leading the race.
Roger Penske has a saying which he uses all the time. A foot has 12 inches. Don't go 11 inches and not go that last inch. That must be what he's thinking right now. They are starting to close in on victory at Indianapolis, and there's very little left here to go, and you know what's going through Roger's mind.
So Rick Mears leads it. Before that series of yellows and pit stops, Rick Mears was a full lap ahead of everyone. But with the stop, Jim Crawford has managed to move back up onto the leader lap, though he is 42 seconds behind Rick Mears. You ride with Michael Andretti. Started 10th, he's currently 3rd.
And watch this ride, too. He was trying to slipstream the car in front of him, Bosell, and he built up speed. Now watch this. This is a classic move. He's made a good exit. He will start to close in as he comes down the straight because he doesn't have as much wind resistance as the car in front. But look, he just does not have enough speed. He waved by Rick Mears on the inside. That's presence of mind. It just doesn't have enough power, does he, Bobby?
The interesting thing you can see right there is how loose Raul Bosell is. His car just dancing around. The rear end's very light. In other words, got a lot of oversteer. Michael is very mad, as you can see, because Raul's holding him up. Just not competitive right now, and he thinks that Michael thinks that Raul is holding him up right now.
Yeah, and he is. He takes him all the way down onto the grass and still can't get by him. And Michael is not a happy man.
He has to hope the officials will wave a blue flag, a passing flag, at Bosell.
This time of the day, I don't think Bosell's going to pay attention to that passing flag.
They're looking if they're holding the passing flag. If this goes on for more than a couple more laps, maybe.
And you got to remember that blue flag with the yellow diagonal is really only an advisory. It tells you a competitor is following closely. It's not an order to move over and give way. Yellow flag flies. No indication as to why. We don't have a report of an accident on the track itself.
Pace car out.
So that's the good news.
Interesting thing right here. Bosell and Michael Andretti both have Cosworth engines, so Michael doesn't really have an advantage for passing down the straightaways.
The indication is that one of the cars tapped the wall and kept going, the 29 car of Rich Vogler. We'll look for confirmation of that. As the yellow flies again, the field now begins to close. And Mario Andretti, finally, after a very long day and 2 incredibly long pit stops, is out of the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Well, there are very few people who I think have had to put up with as much disappointment in sport as Mario Andretti. He has been competitive in this event ever since he came here as a rookie in 1965. And yet, after time, and you see his son still in contention, Michael here, time after time, he has come close and only once won it. You know, I think if he won it more toward the middle of his career, it wouldn't have been so brutal, but he won it so early, suggesting he was going to win many more, and ever since it's been disappointment after disappointment.
Here's a great story. Jim Crawford, the number 15 car. He's not driven a race this season. He was injured here a year ago, went through a long period of therapy. And he's now running in second place on the same lap with the leader. Let's go down into Crawford's pits. Brian Hammonds is there.
Well, Jim may have caught a break with this yellow flag. He needs to make one more fuel stop, and they don't think Rick Mears needs to. He went by him once. Now they gave him the sign to come in, so he should be coming in for his final fuel stop plus 3 tires the next time around. Paul?
Jim Crawford, the crew there, Bobby.
Well, the reason.
And another car into the wall.
That's Vogler, isn't it?
Well, it certainly looks like
by
it.
process of elimination, I think that, yes, it is Vogler.
It is, Rick Vogler.
Boy, has he had a physical day. Well, I made that prize fighter analogy.
2 times in a row. He obviously is having some bad problems there.
So it's yellow as Rich Vogler into the wall at the Indianapolis 500. And Rick Mears is still the leader, but now Jim Crawford has a chance to close up. We'll be back. We're back at the Indianapolis 500. This is Paul Page. You're looking at Roger Penske. He talks with Ken Anderson, one of his tacticians in the team, and wondering whether or not their car will win this Indianapolis 500. It is out in front at the moment. Now, we're under yellow once again as a result of an accident, this time involving Rich Vogler. And we'd mentioned, well, let's take a look at this accident first. There is Rich Vogler, and he is leading Jim Crawford here. Sam?
All right, but it's when we see the car from behind that we get a clue as to what might have happened to Rich Vogler, because we see a little smoke coming out of the back of the car. Right, focus on that. Now let the picture go, and you see that smoke in there. You can see how desperately he's turning the car at this point.
But Sam, you're looking at front wheels going 2 different directions. It
Yes.
looks like a tie rod may have broken in the front.
Yes, we are. Yep, we are.
Yeah, the smoke keep coming out of the back, Paul. He's obviously got some problems there. The engine looks like it just exploded, either the engine or the transmission.
No, Bobby, I think Paul's assessment was good. The front tires were not pointed in the same direction seconds prior to impact. I think the smoke we may have been seeing was coming from the tires underneath the car, possibly. He did not have proper alignment. Something broke in the front suspension. That, by the way, is the most terrifying thing that can happen to a racing driver, when the steering or anything in the front end goes, because you are absolutely helpless.
Look at the left front wheel, which is turning the proper direction on Rich Vogler's car, that car in the upper right-hand corner. But the right front is just continuing on. So something has broken in the steering mechanism on the car. See, the right front tries to turn out while the left front turns in, and he has no control whatsoever. Rich Vogler goes
That's
into the wall.
very obvious.
But that other car was Jim Crawford, second place. How very close he came during that activity. Now, we'd mentioned that officially they had decided to penalize Emerson Fittipaldi, the number 20 car, 1 lap. Apparently now the officials of the race are reassessing that penalty. More evidence coming forward. They're talking it over again. They may give him the lap back.
It would be the first time a penalty like that had ever been assessed to Emerson, who tends not to be the kind of driver to push, to try to push an advantage unfairly.
Here's the Jim Crawford pits. Brian Hammonds is there.
Things are not going real well down here in the Jim Crawford pits. First of all, the scoring monitor has now gone out. Jim Crawford's radio to his crew is not working. If that's not hectic enough for poor Jim, his wife is very, very pregnant. She's due on Tuesday. She's watching this race up in the suites with her doctor. So pretty interesting day for the Jim Crawford crew. Paul?
Well, it has the potential of being a great week for the Jim Crawford family.
Just to restate, though, that he is driving this with a right foot that is still in great pain. I talked to him just the other day. He was standing by the pit wall with his cane, and I said, how do you feel? He said, I got a lot of pain in my right foot. Believe me, I'm not complaining, because only 2 months ago I couldn't walk at all. So from 2 months, unable to walk, to in and out of the lead at the Indy 500, Jim Crawford has got to have at least a light heart right now.
Sam, it appears right now that they put Emerson Fittipaldi back up into second place, or reinstated that lap they took away from him. So that puts him on first, in second, Jim Crawford in third right now.
Well, here comes Rick Mears as the green flag flies again, and by reinstating that lap, that puts Emerson Fittipaldi in second place on the leader lap, and just 10 seconds back as they come to the green from Rick Mears. Jim Crawford moves down to third. There's that white and red machine. That is the 20 car of Emerson Fittipaldi. Back up into second place as they recalculate that lap and that penalty.
Emerson told me the other day, I love this race, Sam. He said, so much. I would like to come back here year after year after year and compete in it. He, of course, won the World Championship twice. He has won IndyCar races, but never Indy. This may be the best moment in his life, the last 8 to 10 years since he withdrew from Grand Prix racing.
Important to remember is while he has not won Indy, he won a 500-mile race at the Michigan 500. So he very definitely is capable of winning one of these races.
He has the savvy, and the Pat Patrick team, which has backed him up, of course, was the architect of that great victory by Gordon Johncock over Rick Mears back in 1982. So once again, it's the Pat Patrick team represented by Emerson Fittipaldi here versus the Roger Penske team represented by Rick Mears. An age-old rivalry between two car owners that really put a lot into the sport.
Yes, and remember, Sam, most people don't think Emil's an oval track driver. But some days he has good days, and this certainly looks like one of them.
I'll tell you what he is. He's very definitely a savvy driver. He knows how to win races. He knows how to save the car to the end of the race. And we have come up on 18 laps from the finish of the Indianapolis 500. And this is a crucial time now. They are all running just as fast as they can.
I'll tell you, Emerson is having the kind of day your brother Al had this time last year, Bobby. Well back in the early going, but kept coming at it, and now he's suddenly a front runner.
He's been in traffic all day. It's been hard for him to get out and get some of that nice clean air like some of the rest of them. Rick Mears, for one, has had all day, but it's showing up now at the end of the race for him.
All right, down in the Patrick pit, here's Jack Arute.
This is Pat Patrick, who's the car owner of Emerson Fittipaldi's car. Pat, great news that the USAC has decided to put you back in second position.
Well, we talked to Emerson, Jack, and he says he didn't pass the car on the yellow. He went by, and the guy went back behind him, so we feel we're very comfortable.
Now, the question, though, is, as I understand it, USAC has also informed you, though, that after the race, they will take a look at the scoring tapes. Is that correct?
Well, that's what they say, but it doesn't mean much after the race, does it?
That's the story from the Pat Patrick pit. Gentlemen?
Emerson Fittipaldi, his driver, runs in second place right now, 10 seconds behind Rick Mears.
All right, the engine story. Chevrolet engines are currently running first and second. And what does that mean? Will that have an instant effect, you suppose, on Chevrolet sales? I rather doubt it. I think that people out there realize these are highly specialized cars and don't have all that much connection with passenger cars. But what I think will happen is much further down the road, Chevrolet became involved with this for engineering reasons rather than PR goals. They knew there were things about fuel economy and lightness that could eventually trickle down to their production engines. And I think what is going on today will bear fruit 5, 6, 7 years from now.
Rick Mears, the leader of the race. Chevy powered, a Penske PC-17.
Yes, that's Rick. Getting along really nice. He should, without any problems, be able to cruise home to a nice victory today. Behind him, a heck of a battle going on. Emo's changing around. We've got Big Al, we've got Jim Crawford. There's an interval coming between Rick Mears.
Emerson Fittipaldi, we went for Fittipaldi. Approaching the line now. There, 14 seconds back. Emerson Fittipaldi lies back from Rick Mears.
Huge lead. You know, Penske has won 5 of the last 9 Indy 500, but only twice has he done so with his own cars, and the last time was back in 1981. There's a lot of car-building pride on the line if Penske is able to win this race.
His cars, manufactured in Poole, England, have not done well in the past 4 years, and this year, well, Rick Mears probably would have been a hands-down winner at Phoenix had it not been for an early accident. And now here at the Indianapolis 500, Rick Mears may in fact be looking at his 3rd Indianapolis 500-mile race crown.
Well, it certainly is, and here comes Fittipaldi. He isn't gaining on Mears. He just would need some sort of problem from Rick Mears for him to pass him. But he's there, he's competitive. Pat Patrick is not going to give up. Emerson Fittipaldi is certainly not giving up. There's Chris Mears. He's worried, Paul.
Fittipaldi maintaining approximately the same interval that he has the past several laps behind Rick Mears. 14.8 seconds back now. And 19 seconds behind that is the 15 car of Jim Crawford. There is Greg Penske giving the board to their leader. That's Roger Penske Jr. actually handling the board. Telling Rick he's 15 seconds out in front of the Indianapolis 500. And he's turning laps at nearly 201 miles an hour.
Well, what we're seeing right now, the difference between owning and building your own cars as Penske does and buying them as Pat Patrick does for Emerson Fittipaldi is making itself clear. When you buy a car from the manufacturer, your car is only as good as what they can sell you, and that design tends to be frozen months before the season begins so that a production run of cars can be made. In the case of a car, when you build it yourself, you can keep making those changes right up to the last minute, which is precisely what the Penske team, under the direction of Nigel Bennett, their designer, has been doing all month. There's Chris Mears with his wife, starting, I would say, to tense up a little bit.
We have alluded to times and speeds and penalties throughout the running of this race. We all should be reminded that they are all unofficial until they have time overnight. As soon as they're done with the race, the scoring team, Diamond and Scoring Crew under the direction of Art Graham, go to work and audit the race. They actually run the race on paper with all the replications of timing slips that they have. You can see now they're showing Rick Mears, and he is beginning to pull away from second place with 11 laps to go at the the Indianapolis 500 the next time he comes around.
Just telling Rick that he's got 17 seconds on the nearest place behind him. The closest one, second place, and he's only got 15 laps left. And you can see by the worried look on Chris Mears' face that it's as hard towards the end of the race, or even harder than it is early in the race, from worry about your driver going to finish.
The driver sees, as we see the relationship back to Emerson Fittipaldi, beautiful shot as he comes down the pit straight. That shot from inside the track, of course, looking out. But when the driver sees those pit signals, he's also receiving the same information via his radio. And when you have the visual confirmation of what you're doing and you hear it at the same time, it's a fantastic sense of being in control. And right now, if there's a problem that Rick Mears has, it will be that his emotions will rise up too much inside of him. You have to keep these things under control.
You can watch Emo as he went around that last turn, how well he's sticking. Emo's been pretty good all day. It's like we said earlier, he's just been in too much traffic.
But he isn't going to catch him on speed. It would have to be something untoward now. Agreed, Bobby?
No,
in fact, if there was a yellow, for example, and they bunched up, I think Rick still has the speed over Emerson, don't you?
Oh, he certainly does.
Yeah.
Rick has had the speed over everybody with the exception of Danny. And of course, Rick had problems earlier on the race, as we've all watched, but he's in there now and he's handling good.
There's a fascinating perfection to the 500-mile distance, isn't there, Paul? I mean, we've seen so much go on through the race, and yet suddenly the dust has cleared, the stage is set, and the man that really has been fastest all month is pulling away in the Indy 500.
A very clear view of the Indianapolis 500 now. 3 men on the leader lap. Rick Mears has completed his 191st, just 9 to go. Emerson Fittipaldi, 17 seconds back, and Jim Crawford rides in 3rd place on the leader lap with Rick. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Chris, how are the butterflies?
Oh, they're going by the minute. We have 8 laps to go, and I just want to get this over with, and I want him to win the race.
Well, that's the story from down here. Believe me, the butterflies are bullets. Back to you.
Well, the question is, will Rick Mears become a 3-time champion and join that rather elite group? And if he does, what does that hold in store for Rick Mears? He is, after all, only 36 years old. He holds the potential of being the first 5-time winner of the Indy 500 or 6-time winner.
3 years ago, I made the prediction that when all the dust settled, Rick Mears would be the great champion of Indianapolis, that he would have more wins at the time he retired than anyone else. Of course, he's had to come very close a couple of times recently without managing to win the thing. But a 3rd win today would start to make that possibility look more like a reality. You know, Roger Penske, great thing. What is he feeling right now? He says, I always come to Indianapolis as if I have never won it. So you're not saying, here's a man who's won it a number of times, and this is business as usual. He is going to be very, very excited if this car wins the race.
Let's remember, Sam, Emo still could win this race. Looks like Mears is going to win it, no doubt. He's definitely the fastest, but Emo is in 2nd place, charging hard. And when you look at Patrick and Penske in that scene we just saw, you know, there's 2 of the old biggie car owners.
Well, Bobby, I've got to point out to you, you just said it looks like he's going to win it, no doubt. More times than not, the man who leads at lap 180 does not win the Indianapolis 500. Statistics will bear that out. Rick Mears leads at the moment. Is it a 50th victory for the Penske crew? A 3rd Indianapolis win for Rick Mears and for his chief mechanic, Peter Parrott. Already they've begun to assemble the area that the winner will pull into. But who will it be? Emerson Fittipaldi is in pursuit. Let's go to his pits now and Brian Hammond.
So Fittipaldi, what's going through your mind right now? Your husband's in 2nd place.
I can't tell you how nervous I am right now, you know. I hope he finished really good.
Can he catch Rick Mears?
Yeah, I think so.
She's confident she can, Paul Page.
Well, now we're getting an entirely different piece of information coming from the officials of the race. They are telling us that they are going to assess the penalty that we have discussed against Emerson Fittipaldi. After reviewing some information on that particular situation, coming to the yellow, there's Pat Patrick, the car owner. I'm not sure that he knows yet, but this car will suddenly, with a flick of the switch on a computer, be transferred 1 lap back. That bad for Emerson Fittipaldi, but will be good for Jim Crawford, who with that Buick-powered machine will move up into second place with just 5 laps to go for Rick Mears.
We started the race with 3 Penske's on the front row of the grid. One was eliminated when Sullivan crashed. Al Unser Sr. has dropped back and is not in contention. 1 car is left. Did you see it right there?
All right, let's go down to Pat Patrick's picks.
Well, we are with Pat Patrick, and he just found out that he has been, the penalty will stand, Mr. Patrick. What do you think?
Well, I don't believe it. It's a typical USAC sanctioning body. It's screwed up. We're protesting. I'm not concerned about it.
You think you can overturn it?
Beg your pardon?
You think you can overturn it?
Oh, sure, because he didn't pass out
the second place car, Jim Crawford, is in the pits now. Second place as a result of them moving Emerson Fittipaldi 1 lap down and back into 7th. So Jim Crawford is in the pits, and Al Unser Sr. comes by and picks up second place. As they work on the left front of the car, Al Unser has moved into second place. It's now the Penske cars 1 and 2 at Indianapolis.
Penske has won this race in 1972, in 79, in 81, in 84, in 85, in 87.
And look, on board Michael Andretti's car, the upper cover of the right side pod is blowing and trying to rip off of the car. Michael Andretti runs in 3rd place right now. Here comes Jim Crawford roaring out of the pits. Bobby, I told you, it's not over until the checkered flag flies. And this race, while being dominated by Rick Mears, is still very active.
Not only that, now that will cause a yellow flag.
Yep. And they'll bunch up, and it'll be a trophy dash between
yellow
the
flag.
Yep.
We saw it. We anticipated.
There's
the pace came up on the main straightaway. The yellow flag comes out, and it's going to be a sprint to the finish of the Indianapolis 500. We are on lap number 197, just 3 to go.
The Indianapolis 7.5 miles left to run.
And it looks like if they can control the field properly, we may come back for a single lap run to the green flag. We've seen a 2-lap run when Bobby Rahal passed with just 5 miles to go Kevin Cogan in 1986. Now, what will we see today?
They're going to be awfully hard. There's 2 laps left, Paul. It's going to be awfully hard to pick up that piece, organize the pace car, get rid of all the equipment on the racetrack, and go green. So I have to guess at the moment the race may finish under the yellow.
2 laps to go. Another part falls off the back of one of the trucks coming out to service. This problem on the main straightaway.
So right now, Rick Mears in that cockpit, he's hovering between the emotion of thinking that he may be able to win this without really having to push anymore. He'll win it under the yellow, and realizing that if they can get the track clean fast enough, he's going to have to drive it all out for his life for 1 lap.
Rick Mears, right behind the pace car, right behind Rick is Jim Crawford. But Rick Mears is well out in front. So yellow flag with just 5 miles now separating Rick Mears from his 3rd Indianapolis 500-mile race championship. Can they clear the track fast enough? And if they do, can anybody catch Rick Mears? Bobby, I suspect that you are right. It looks like Rick Mears can coast now to his 3rd Indianapolis 500-mile race win.
Remember, Paul, we still worry about the cars on the yellow. That's when they develop the most heat inside the engines. He still could have a problem. We don't want him to. We certainly don't. But nonetheless, it could happen. You can tell by the look on Penske's face, by Chris's face. They're worried about the same thing. If you can see inside of Rick, he's worried about the same thing.
Al Unser in 2nd place. No, Jim Crawford now, they report.
They can't make it to the green. Paul, we're 199 laps right now.
So effectively, the Indianapolis 500-mile race at 80 miles an hour for Rick Mears has come to an end.
Rick always says that he thinks of his driving as a way that he can pay the crew back for the job that they've done. And listen to that crowd. But did you also see the way he almost waved them away? He said, don't clap for me yet. Don't clap yet. It's not quite over. And he's right.
The 500 has never finished this way. It has finished under yellow with rain. The 199th lap being run out. Roger Penske holds his breath for 1 very long lap. Chris Mears stares down at the ground. Listen to the crowd.
We never like to see a race finish under the yellow, but you can't say this hasn't been one of the nicest races we've ever seen, Paul.
And you can't say that it wasn't decisively won by the man currently leading. You know what I mean? The yellow did not change the order of things.
So on to the main straightaway, the fourth and final turn. The final lap now being completed. The pace car will actually see the checkered flag first. And there is the checkered flag alongside the yellow. Rick Mears has won his third Indianapolis 500, and Chevrolet has won at Indy.
Rick is one happy person. Three-time winner, another one of the big group of three-time winners. Look at Fred Penske. Penske just continues to set records.
Rick Mears won the Indy 500, only the second time he ever raced here. What a prodigy of the Speedway.
Second place in an amazing run, Jim Crawford. Third place, unofficially, Michael Andretti being shown in fourth place, and Bobby Rahal in fifth, followed by Raul Boesel and Emerson Fittipaldi. But car number 5, Rick Mears, has won the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
I'm Jack Carruth in Victory Lane. Rick Mears getting the congratulations of his crew. Rick, how does it feel, number 3?
Hey, what, it feels great. You know, they've asked me, you know, which one was the best of the first two, and the second one was the best. And I've got to say today that the third one's even better. I can't explain it. The guys just did a tremendous job. We had a little trouble, you know, early on and got down lap, and that just shows how tough the guys were. They turned us around and got us going and got us back up that lap, and then even a lap above. So, you know, the Chevrolet just ran beautiful all day, and the guys did a tremendous job.
You know, they've said all month that you may very well be the perfect race car driver for Indianapolis. After this performance today, coming back from adversity, coming back up on top, what were your thoughts in the final couple of moments when you saw the yellow flag come out?
Well, you know, I knew that unless there was really something, we were so close to the end that, you know, even if they went green, you know, we could go pretty good and pretty easy and get it across. It was just a matter, when something like that happens, you hate to change your pace. You got to set rhythm going, and you even hate to start backing off when you've got a lead there at the end, because you hate to change anything that's the way you've been doing all day long. So it gets a little bit nerve-wracking, and then when you see that yellow like that, you think, oh no, you know, now here's another change. But you're just hoping that you know, it doesn't change anything on the car, and it did, and everything worked great.
Hey, you've been so laid back, kick back California style all month here. Now, when are you going to finally let loose?
Well, I'd say probably tonight.
I imagine that in the Penske team there will be one whale of a party tonight, gentlemen. Maybe right now. Let's go back up to you.
This 2.5-mile oval, the roar of engines now complete. Rick Mears has won his third Indianapolis 500-mile race. 1979, 84, and now he wins once again, as Rick Mears proves that he is a dominant race driver in the Indy cars. The giant crowd, well, many of them will stay for another hour or two. Others already have headed for the exits. They can report that they watched Rick Mears win his third Indianapolis 500-mile race.